Storytime again. Got Scott here, and we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot, especially with us. I think being in Oklahoma specifically, there always hasn't been a lot of representation in our area, at least, for more boutique guitar brands.
So it's kind of a market size thing. Oklahoma City, we think of it as a nice big city here, but in the grand scheme of things, a lot of this stuff will go to Chicago, New York, LA, Dallas, Houston, all these bigger cities. So we've tried really hard to combat that here at Edmond and give our customers, these things that you can actually put in your hands.
So what we're talking about is we've done a lot of the classics. We're a very kind of classics shop. We do a lot with Gibson and Fender and Martin and Taylor and the brands that everybody knows and loves.
The old school.
And in the last, 3 or 4 years, we've kind of been slowly bringing in more high-end, more, again, kind of boutique brands. It started with Collings, and in the last year, we've started working with Loudon and Bourgeois guitars. And in the past, even, we've kind of done stuff with some other companies that maybe people don't know the names of, Bedell and some other companies that had stashes of rosewood that we really, really tried to grab at.
In the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of people don't realize size-wise how much there is variance in the size of these companies. And to kind of put that into perspective, I always like to kind of throw these numbers out. Martin, on an average day between their two factories, they've got a factory in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and a factory in Mexico. On a good day, they'll put out somewhere roughly around 700 guitars a day. Or no, I'm sorry, I've got this wrong. Taylor does around 700.
So Taylor's up there.
Taylor's got the Ensenada, Mexico factory and their El Cajon factory in California. So those two, because they've got it just down to a science, they're putting out on a good day about 700 guitars a day. Martin, on the flip side, is about 500 guitars a day.
Yeah.
And Gibson, surprisingly, for a company the size of Gibson, they've got that little shop in Bozeman, Montana with their acoustics, and they're putting out, on a really good day, they might put out 90 to 92 guitars a day. But I mean, when you talk about how even drastically down from that, how many guitars do you think Collings puts out a day?
So Collings puts out about 3,000 instruments a year total.
Mm-hmm.
About 1,500 of those is flat top acoustics.
Okay, so you
think about those numbers.
Yeah.
Taylor's making more guitars in 2 days than Collings makes in a year.
Yeah.
Bourgeois, they're making, I believe, around 500 guitars a year.
That's just
total.
Small numbers.
So a lot of people, once they're even aware of the names, are like, we get a fair amount of sticker shock. Folks come in here and they're thinking, I'm going to go with a mainstream brand and look at this, and they look at the price of some of these smaller companies, and it's substantially more. Sometimes maybe even double what an equivalent might be from one of the mainstream companies. And there's a lot that goes into it that justifies that price. Scarcity, for one. We're talking about those small numbers, but a lot more hand time goes into, if you're only making 500 guitars a year, you're going to be a lot more selective with the raw materials, because you can be.
You kind of have to be. To justify a price point like that, there's got to be a reason it costs that kind of money. There's got to be a reason you're spending that kind of time. You're not going to spend, forever building a $100 guitar. It just doesn't. The numbers don't add up there.
Yeah. And that's the beauty, and that's why we're in a golden age of it. Specifically, we sell some great electric guitars too, where we're kind of thinking in the terms of acoustic guitars, but I think a bit of it, just like everything else that is of higher quality that may be considered a luxury item, I tell people all the time, we live in a great time now where all of these manufacturers, no matter what price point, you can get Taylors and Martins starting at about the $399 price point, for like a baby Taylor.
And that guitar you're getting for $399 is a far cry from the $399 guitar you would get 20 years ago. These companies, these factories, they do something long enough, they really start to get good at it. They learn from the counterparts of other companies. So no, we're in for lack of a better term, a golden era of guitars, in the sense that even some of these $300 guitars are built better than I ever could have imagined. I've been here for 22 years, and the $300 guitars I sell now are so much better than the $300 guitars I sold 20 years ago. So
it's an incredible time, and that gap. I guess the point I'm trying to make is maybe that gap is kind of closing a little bit as far as quality, because and it actually to the credit of companies like Collings and Bourgeois and Richard Hoover at Santa Cruz, and I think over the past 15 years especially, people have looked at these companies as just next level, unattainable, blah, 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 blah. But, Martin and Taylor and Gibson were always making great product.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, maybe it went in waves. They had really great periods, but...
There's always swings. There's always eras.
I'll tell you, because of guys like the boutique brands, everybody has stepped up their game, and Martin and Taylor and Gibson are making some of the best guitars they have ever made right now, because they're competing with the small guys. I think the public has kind of became a little bit more aware and has a little bit more of a discerning taste. I kind of use this analogy all the time. If you guys are beer drinkers, 30 years ago, if you wanted to buy a beer, do you want a Budweiser, you want a Miller, you want a Coors? That's basically your options. But now you can't shake a stick without hitting 20 craft breweries.
Microbreweries on every corner. Yeah.
So people are more discerning now about quality and about what it is you're actually paying for.
It's just like you said. I think that the little guy pushes the big guy. I think everybody wins out in this. The little guy is in search for a build quality that you can't do when you're a huge company. You can't have that hands-on, attention to detail on a small boutique build like Collins or Bourgeois or Bedell, any of these smaller builders. But because of that, it makes the big guys be able to step up and see, we can actually further our craft. It makes everybody better. It really does.
Yeah. The new Martin Inception series.
The bracing.
The bracing takes a couple leaps. It's not an exact copy, but it takes a couple inspirations from what, some boutique builders are doing. And they're kind of bringing that in the mainstream. Taylor did the same thing with the Grand Symphony, and the sound port at the treble side cutaway. Guys like McPherson and other small builders had been doing stuff like that and experimenting with sound ports for a long time. And it took a mainstream company like Taylor to be like, look, this is cool. This is what happens whenever you change the chemistry of what's going on.
Or even like the armrest, They weren't the first one to do that, but
they brought it mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, nobody's copying anybody.
No,
it's taking inspiration again, sometimes from the smaller companies, and bringing it to the masses.
I always say, if we're honest, I think almost every acoustic guitar builder owes their credit to Martin.
Sure.
Since 1833, they were kind of the first ones, but everybody's taken their own inspiration, their own kind of clues, and their own ideas, and built from it.
So you have to ask yourself, and again with the whole boutique thing, is it? A lot of people ask us, is it worth it? It's just like anything else that you appreciate that's fine quality, because at the end of the day, you could spend a couple $100s on a great guitar, or you could spend multiple thousands of dollars on a great guitar. It depends on your appreciation for the refinement, because that's usually what we're talking about. We're talking about 10% of difference that may end up costing you a lot in the pocketbook, but it's refinement.
Well, and it's that age-old question everybody always asks, is there a difference? Absolutely. There's always a difference, and we can always show you what those differences are and explain to you. But, it just depends on, where you're at in that you definitely get a difference for your money on each of those steps. So,
yeah. It's cool to be able to offer both and be able to show both sides of the coin to people and say, the tried and true classics are great, but have you ever heard of this brand? Look what these guys are doing. Oh, they make this little tweak. Or, oh, look at the quality of this fit and finish. Man, you just can't touch it. It's really, really cool. We're really lucky to be able to offer both sides of the coin, the boutique and the mainstream. But it's ultimately for you to decide on if it's worth it for you or whether that's what you want to go to.
I could never tell a customer, because I could never do this myself. I could never walk in or look at a picture of a boutique guitar and just point at it and say, I'll take that one. I want to hold and feel and see that quality in my hands and hear that quality. That's the whole reason we bring these in, is because, I mean, these are guitars that you should absolutely experience firsthand before you buy them. I would never pick any of these small bills off of a photo. It's just they're all too much personality. So much handwork goes into these that each one has its own kind of unique feel and personality.
Yeah, they're incredible guitars. We're lucky to have them. I think if you've never heard of any of these boutique companies, ask us about them. We'll be able to tell you about them. Or maybe you have heard of them, you've never actually seen one in person, or you've never touched one. Come in, check them out. We'll that's another thing too with the smaller shops is I should say that like they come around less frequently. Most of the build times on most of these smaller companies are even still years long.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's this lead time on a Collings or a board?
So right now we're looking at about 18 months, maybe even longer depending on the options. But 18 months from the time this beautiful OM3 with Maple right here. If we sell this guitar today and I order another one, we probably won't see it for 18 months. So there is a scarcity aspect in that. So yeah, come check them out while you can, while it's here. Another cool thing, and the mainstream guys do this too, but another cool thing I want to mention about boutique brands is they're all customizable as well. So like we do a lot of special orders for customers that say, hey, I might want this model, but I want this wood, or I might want this inlay. So that's another really cool thing too, to be able to customize the exact guitar that you want, that you dream of. And the quality is going to be there. So when you wait your 18 months and you finally open it like Christmas morning, it's going to be excellent.
And that guitar is made for you.
Yeah.
I mean, not anybody else, just you. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, guys, if you're in the Oklahoma City area, Edmond area, come check these guitars out. If you've never heard of them and want to play them.
You got to put them in your hands. You absolutely do.
Yeah. Come check these out. Boutique brands at Edmond Music. We'd be happy to tell you all about them.